Welcome to the Believe in Better podcast, where we dive into the latest trends, challenges and innovations shaping the industry. We'll bring you expert insights, real-world stories and thought-provoking discussions to keep you informed and inspired. Today we're joined by Ben and David from Rada Controls. So today we're going to be diving into the sports and leisure commercial sector. David, I guess you and your team are at the forefront of the kind of customer environment. When we talk about sports and leisure, what do we mean? What sort of environments are we in?
It is a huge range. So you're going from a rugby club to a caravan site to an arena to a large chain of gyms. So it's a massive range of facilities and types.
I'm guessing with that, some different customer needs depending on where that sort of commercial washroom is.
Yeah, you're going from a high-tech health spa to a caravan site that just wants to robustness, reliability, and vandal-resistant products through to your high-spec, more domestic-looking products.
And with sports and leisure, in comparison to domestic, I guess these environments are much more high traffic, high usage. Can you talk a bit about how water controls enhance hygiene in those environments and also help deliver operational efficiency?
Yeah, so you're absolutely right. Some of those facilities, the showers are going to be used 50 times a day, 100 times a day. So it's completely different to a household. And those products really need to, stand a lot of usage. And I think when you look at a sports facility, you might think that all those products are used at the same amount of times. But actually, when you go into a gym, you might find that 2 showers are used 100 times, a couple of showers might not be used at all. And, digital products are going to allow you to start understanding that and start flushing where you need to and really sort of meeting compliance requirements as well as giving the user experience to your customers.
And Ben, let's think about gyms specifically. So building on that example, we know that customer expectations for hygiene are high. I think especially post-pandemic, we've really seen that. So how can sports venues kind of future-proof their water systems and kind of deliver on that?
Yeah, so as you said, hygiene is massively on the agenda at the moment. And even from sports gyms or gym equipment, you expect it to wipe it down and that cleanliness needs to follow through. So I think in terms of building their systems for the future, it is all about that personal touch and making sure that what you interact with in the gym is very much controlled by the gym itself rather than asking you to do different things. So I think this infrared sensor technology is definitely seeing that on the increase, just to give people a non-touch place so they can get clean, get out and do what they need to do. And
what are the most common misconceptions about water safety in leisure facilities and how can operators address them?
Misconceptions may relate to the way the water is dosed chemically or, the fact that you can handle that without dosing chemically. You can introduce flushing regimes. It's not as stringent as healthcare, but some of those concepts are seen in sport and leisure. So there's still compliance to L8. You are still responsible for managing the water within those facilities. So you want to implement flush regimes, thermal disinfection, as well as sometimes chemical dosing in some instances to control the water. And it's great to be able to offer innovative products that can do that for you and automate that compliance. We produce electronic shower panels or digital innovative products that can automate that and log it for compliance.
And when you say chemical dosing, what does that mean? And I guess what other solutions are there? Do they offer a cost saving?
So there's a balance to be had. You've got customer experience and you've got water management and safety, and you want to deliver that in the most efficient way you can. So when you talk about chemical dosing, that can be chlorination of the water. But you can manage that as well through automating compliance with digital controls that allow you to implement flushing regimes or allow you to thermally disinfect the water. And that's really going to allow you to manage that in a more efficient way.
And you mentioned sort of digital controls, but Ben, what role does the data play in ensuring safe and efficient water management systems and what technologies are out there?
similar sort of technologies that we've seen in other areas. So Modbus and BACnet would again come into it. And again, gyms are a really interesting building because of the amount of energy that they're using. They're on 24/7. People are using them. Some people are even going in and having their daily showers there rather than at home because of the cost of living crisis. So we're seeing more gym owners delivering social value, I guess, to the neighbourhood, it becoming more of a community asset. So in terms of them understanding what their water usage is and then allowing to budget that over the year is a critical part, especially if you're a franchise owner. You're still running a business, you've got a profit and loss account, water bills are going up at the moment. So to enable to see the data, to enable you to plot your costs for the year and understand your profit piece is integral to that. And also Dave mentioned the compliance aspect of it. So when it comes through to the audit purposes or just to give you peace of mind that your customer base is going to be safe and well looked after because you've got a duty of care towards them, it just gives you that understanding or that compliance of what your water you're using and at what stages of it to ensure that everyone is as safe as they can be.
And that's a really interesting point about consumers using gyms as more of a community space. I think especially with the cost of living crisis, we've sort of seen that in the media. I guess how are we building that insight back into new products and what can we learn from that?
So I think experience is really coming into its own. So gyms are a really interesting space to work with. Number one, when the cost of living crisis hits, generally subscriptions are one of the first things that people give up as they cut back. And then gyms used to be number two, but where gyms always used to be a real focus on fitness and strength and sport, now it's much more of a well-being centre with the advent of yoga classes, Pilates, like a lot more of a wellness kind of sense to it. So some of that we're taking back into the business has allowed us to develop latest innovations around a new technology called Cold Boost, which at the end of the shower turns the shower down to a low cold water temperature to give you all the benefits of having effectively a cold water swim in a shower at the end of it to allow that recuperation and the cardiovascular system to reset. So that is an amazing opportunity for us to take that into gyms. And also from a cheeky point of view, you're not heating water for that 2, 3, 4 minutes. So again, it's a bit of a cost saving at the end of the shower, diversifying or differentiating the gym's value proposition to its customers and just adding a little bit more of a holistic wellness to the gym environment. So it's one nice example of that.
It seems like the needs of the sector have really evolved we've got the kind of baseline compliance requirements, the sort of must-haves, but then the user expectation has changed as well. So I guess how do you think that's going to keep changing in the future and what solutions are going to be in gyms that we can expect?
Yes, no, there's a lot of investment going into the future of gyms, especially around technology. I was reading something the other day, it was really interesting about gym machinery that comes in that links through AI into your smartwatches and it will react differently depending on what your cadence is. So if your heart rate drops below a training zone, it will change the resistance to bring you back into the training zone. And it's that kind of aspect to it. Is there an opportunity to link your end of shower experience depending on what time of day you're going to the gym? So if it's late in the evening, do you want a more relaxed experience, something that's maybe a little bit warmer to get you into that kind of chill down mode for bedtime? Or do you want something more invigorating as your morning routine ends and you start your day properly?
And David, just going back to the kind of sort of the must-haves for the customer, thinking about their facility, gyms using a huge amount of water, energy to heat the water. And then we know that with that, there'll be sustainability goals in mind as well. So how can the water controls help operators achieve both, I guess, water safety, but sustainability as well?
Yeah, so there's some interesting examples out there. I can think of a gym chain, if you've got, 200 gyms out there, and just reacting to customer feedback, maybe you want to take the temperature up or down. That is a huge investment to go out there and adjust hundreds and hundreds of showers. And maybe you want to try taking the temperature down slightly to save a bit of money. But again, the investment in just making those small changes is huge. And that's where digital products allow you to almost centralize those changes. I think that's where we should innovate next. So currently, if you've got a gym full of our digital products, you can just access all of those at the same time. But the next level would be introducing, huge networks of those where you can access all of your gyms centrally through a network system. And that would really allow you to react a lot quicker to your users and also give you the ability to adjust efficiencies.
And we've previously talked in different sectors about sort of maintenance regimes and kind of servicing of these products. What does that look like in a gym setting or the broader sports and leisure setting?
It's so important because, just having a couple of showers down at a gym can be really a nightmare for the people running that facility. So you want really quick reaction times from a service team. And, we have that capability. So we have 60 engineers nationally that can get in there really quickly and react to those issues as they come up. And we also have preventative maintenance. So we have contracted work going on where we can, try and prevent those problems before they happen by maintaining those on an annual basis. And that, it's going to stop as many showers going down so your users don't get that problem.
Great. Thank you. So we've talked a lot about sports and leisure. We're going to move on a little bit to think about sort of innovation in the sector or the total commercial space and kind of broader topics as well. So one thing we've touched on is sort of digital systems coming in and networked connected systems. Ben, how do you think digital transformation, or how do you think digital might transform the built environment and kind of shape the commercial setting?
It's definitely going to shape it as we move forward. I think the advent of AI and the interaction or interconnectivity within the building management systems that are coming through, it's going to inform so much of, as we talked about, the move towards decarbonisation of the built environment. I mean, water itself is quite heavily used across the construction industry. And when you get to our realm of actual water usage, you've got to strike that balance between keeping the circulation of the water systems going to prevent stagnation and microbiomes forming that can potentially infect people versus the requirement to reduce water usage. So I think AI will play an integral part of almost performing that cadence of flushing through a duty flushing mechanism, a smart duty flushing mechanism, the type that we've got, to really own and control and be able to report on it, because ultimately that's what everyone wants to do, to prove that their building is as environmentally conscious as it can be. And it's really an integral part of what's going forward. You look at a lot of the buildings, especially the buildings that used to be rented out for offices pre-COVID. Now with hybrid working, some people haven't gone back to work. So there's a lot of office buildings or commercial buildings that no longer have people in there. So when it comes back to renters coming in or the landlord wanting to relaunch that on the marketplace, they might not have systems that are as accessible as that. So they might have left their asset too long to be competitive in this landscape.
And David, we've touched on some of the risks already, but when you're speaking to customers, what are some of the biggest risks that facilities face when it comes to water safety? And how do you think technology can be leveraged to solve those?
So water safety, it's a broad subject, but users underneath those showers, you need to be sure that they're maintained properly and they're delivering water at a safe temperature. That's the fundamental part of it. And then, the other part of that is maintaining your water system so that it's as hygienic as possible and, those microbes aren't forming in the pipework. So through flushing regimes, we can combat that and help reduce the risk.
Looking ahead to the next decade, how do you see water management evolving across different commercial sectors? So whether that's sports and leisure, healthcare, beyond?
Yeah, it's a big question. I think remote monitoring, I think digitization, and also, introducing wastewater heat recovery into each of these situations will happen. If you think about a gym, 50, 100 showers a day, and the wastewater heat recovery opportunity there is massive to drive efficiency. And remote monitoring to understand the usage, the flow rates, the temperatures, to really give you the ability to adjust and drive further efficiency will be where we should innovate.
And you mentioned wastewater heat recovery there. So that's a technology that's sort of around us at the moment. It's being used in other sectors. Have you got any examples of where you're seeing that come in and how can we migrate that across other commercial settings?
Yeah, so we're starting to see that and work with our partners in student accommodation. You've got high-rise buildings with lots of showers in there. And it's a lot of water that you can take back into the system using that technology. And as I mentioned, if you think of a gym and just, they're in use all day long, every day, and that's a lot of showers in those gyms. So to try and introduce wastewater heat recovery into those environments would be a huge saving if we can get it in there for the customer.
And Ben, just going back to data and sort of the power of digitisation, how can we leverage data-driven decision-making to make better decisions and really inform water safety, efficiency and compliance?
So it's understanding the data. As soon as data can lead you anywhere, but ultimately I think it's getting a true understanding of what you're building and the performance of your building is. And I think that's the key bit to make a good decision across, because you can do as many models as you want or try and predict the future. But if you've got actual data around you on past performance over a segment of however long, that really enables you to make the right decisions for your building and for whatever use it's going to be.
And another topic that we've not talked about specifically, but I'm going to ask is how might construction be changing to enable some of these solutions coming in? So, for example, modern methods of construction, we're seeing off-site builds. How do you think that might enable sort of connected products going in?
Yes, that's a great question. We are definitely seeing more of that modern methods of construction coming in, and modular and modular definitely coming to the fore. They've always been around for the kind of past years, but I think at the moment it's the speed of having to deliver which is really driving that piece. And from that system, to be able to build off-site a completely independent unit and just lift it into place with all the utilities and the system sensors, whatever you're doing of that connected piece, is a lot easier to control and then a lot easier to hook up once you're on there. And then you're only looking at a subnet of a space rather than a whole building and all the potential flaws or testings that you're going to have to do to ensure the whole building works on its own. So it's definitely the way forward.
And Ben, so thinking about the manufacturer side, what can we be doing to get that insight and learn what's happening now and really build in future-proof technologies that are going to drive solutions to some of these needs?
So we're lucky enough to have really good connections within the industry, also mavens outside of the industry, so computer science engineers or doctors within that AI space that we can call on and understand where that technology is going to, right through to the contractors that are building the world of tomorrow and understanding what they're seeing, what their customers are seeing. We also have really good contacts around the wider business in terms of Mira and Recoup brands as well, with those top developers within the country, and especially what the government's driving legislation wise to bring those in. So we can have a look at all of those things that are impacting the built environment and then develop those products in there. What I'm especially interested in at the moment is kind of the recirculation piece. So we talked about the water usage. The environmental agencies put a target of 5 billion litres water scarcity by 2050 per day, which is a very scary stat to try and save. And effectively, you can get a commercial building creating its own ecosystem. So we talked about the wastewater heat recovery. If you can take that heat out of the water that's going down the drain to reheat, you're saving something. If you use solar panels on the roof, that will help. And especially if you can put electric showers in there with a wastewater heat recovery system, you've almost got an ecosystem on its own working there. And if you then can put a water recovery unit on the roof as well and a recirculatory system using technology that already exists in healthcare around UV lights or filters, you end up having a whole building that's essentially carbon neutral because it's capturing its own water, reusing it, filtering it, preparing it for human waste or human use. It's a grey water system anyway, so as long as in that system it's a good place, and then you're using natural sunlight to heat it up and recovering some of that heat as it goes down the drain. It's definitely the way to look at the future in terms of how do you get all these technologies working at one. And I think we're very lucky with our business that we have a lot of that technology already in-house.
I think that is so exciting. We've got a number of technologies around us. And I guess what is the challenge and what's the barriers that why they're not being adopted at scale yet?
Yes, I think they're all evolving at a different pace. So our digital technology has been around for many years, and it's suddenly change doesn't happen very well, especially in the commercial spaces. If something's worked, people don't really like changing it, especially the healthcare space. It's a very risk-averse environment for very good reason. So if you do need infection control, you have to prove that out over a number of years within a test trial, which is actually on site. If you look at the other spaces, wastewater heat recovery is really coming into its own at this current time. But before 5-10 years ago, it really wasn't an option. And then solar panels have been around for ages. But again, very slow adoption up to that point where, why wouldn't people have it? but effectively it's the return on investment. And I think as that technology comes into a more affordable place and the government supports it with grants, we're seeing more of that adoption and more of that thinking come across. There's definitely a rise in consumers as well in terms of that green message. You want to protect the planet, you want to be a green consumer. And it's always been a choice because that is my ideology, but unfortunately my budget won't let me do it. And now we're getting to that place.
And
I also think, and Ben's absolutely right, and there's also a CapEx versus OpEx situation out there where, the capital spend is quite large and they're not seeing the ROI, but the operational side of the business would then see the ROI. So when you're taking a product into some of the sites, the capital team aren't willing to invest maybe because they're not seeing the ROI that product's going to produce. So it takes quite a while to get past that situation for some of the bigger builds out there.
And that's quite a complex, I guess, explanation to the customer. So how can we explain that better and kind of make that real to the customer between that capital spend and operational spend?
Well, I mean, we need those two working together. That would be the solution. I think, where we've got hospitals or sport and leisure facilities or other commercial facilities that are, running their own site or running their own business, and you can go in and demonstrate how much we can drive efficiency and cost saving with our products. That's where it works, and that's where we're getting the uptake on either electronic panels or the Outlook infrared system or Rada Sense. We're seeing that working in those environments. But some of those bigger builds where you have different budget pots, it's quite difficult to get the ROI across to everyone in that specification chain.
And final question. So on that, what advice would you give to facility managers who are looking to invest in future-proof water control solutions? So that might be something, for a sort of 5-10 year time frame, but how can they future-proof?
Yeah, I mean, digital is the way forward. I think in a lot of these environments, the training, the spares, the people on the ground, the users of our products, that's an investment that has to be made. So to bring a new product into that scenario, it's not just selling a product in, it's that whole investment has to change. So it's really ensuring that the facilities management team understand, the capabilities of our products and the ROI and the cost savings and the efficiencies they can drive throughout those facilities. And then, hopefully to get those installed so they can start seeing that for themselves.
And Ben, what advice would you give to facility managers looking to future-proof or invest in future-proof solutions for their environment?
I think keep an eye on what the legislation is doing. That is driving standards across the marketplace. It's forever evolving, but it's evolving in very particular direction. So sustainability is one to really keep an eye on. There are very strict government deadlines and targets in terms of the water scarcity bit that we've talked about, utilities. So make sure you're future-proofing to get the best experience out of the minimal amount of utilities that you're using would be my first one. And second one is have a look at where you can really drive those savings for the ROI. Cost of living is affecting everyone and the bills are just increasing all the time. So really have a look at where your investment can drive that saving in the long term on understanding your bills, understanding your water usage, understanding your electricity usage, and ultimately keeping your tenants or customers or patients or gym goers as safe as they can be. Because if they're happy, they'll stay with you. And if you've got a good asset, it will maintain a good asset and it will be able to generate that ROI for you for a long time.
Great. David, Ben, thank you so much for joining me today. So much to cover and lots to think about. So thank you for your insights. Great to have you on the podcast.
My pleasure.
Thank you.